Hi, everybody. I'm Meredith, and welcome to Conversation with Friends. And I'm especially interested tonight, or delighted, I should say, tonight, to introduce you to an old friend of mine. And I kind of hate to say that. Sometimes people think that that's an insult.
I
Old
am
friend,
an
but a
old friend
long
in
time,
every sense.
Roberta. We go back. We were just realizing Roberta Baskin, who is just a celebrated investigative journalist, among other things that she's been doing over the years. We go back to a conference or a meeting in Peace Village at the Retreat Center for the Brahma Kumaris over 20 years ago. That's when we met and instantly became friends. But Roberta, I mean, I have to say, you have so many friends in your life, and it's such a beautiful thing. You know, I've watched you with people, and what I've always seen is that you make a connection with people, and you're there to help people and serve people. And something special happens between you and the people that you bring into your life, and you get them very involved, whether they want to get involved or not. You hook them in, and they're involved. But before we start talking, I just wanted to say a few things about why she's so celebrated and the impact that she has made, not just on a community or a city, but really on the world with the work that she's done. Has been an investigative reporter for about 30 years for ABC, CBS, PBS, and probably a lot more. And what she has been doing over many years is really uncovering things that are really unjust and problems in society, whether it's corporations or organizations. And when she uncovers it, there can be a lot of excitement going on in the world, because she is able to see things with all of her investigative skills and her hard work, see things that perhaps the world hasn't even seen before. And it's good for the world, I think, personally, and most people do, but not necessarily good for the people that are, that she's spotlighting, because often it has to do with things that maybe they're doing that aren't quite right. Not that they intentionally do bad things in the world, but she's won many, many awards, right? Roberta's heard this many times, but I think she's got over 75 awards in journalism, including the most prestigious, the Columbia Peabody Awards, and the, what else, Roberta? There's so many other,
never mind,
the Peabody
Meredith.
Awards, the Columbia Awards, the Emmy Awards, and as a result of her heavy, intense investigative reporting that she has done over many years. So I'm really delighted to interview her, but there's more to this story. That's kind of like Roberta, like your past, right? You've made a transition over the last 20 years, and you're still showcasing things that need to be shown in the world at this time. But what I love about what you're doing now, Roberta, is that you're really showcasing and shining a light on good things, often good things that even become better as more people get involved. So
it's like going from the darkness into the light a bit. It's like a real 180 from, doing stories about companies doing a bad thing or injustice or fraud or all of, corruption, to really realizing that people want to know who's doing it right. Where are the good guys? How can we have more information about that? That's what people want to know also. So
what moves you.
There's a place for both.
Yeah.
I just want to say I'm so honored to be with you, though, Meredith. You are a dear friend, and you always just inspire and uplift my spirits when I'm with you. And so I'm very grateful for our friendship.
Oh, thanks so much for that. And it's always been fantastic to get to work with you on projects. They just move very quickly when you're around, and with your insights and your abilities and your creativity and your enthusiasm. That's what I see with you.
It's like a love fest.
Right. Isn't that the way the world should be? I mean, that's how I see it, is some of the things that we've been lucky enough to be involved in over the years, like Images and Voices of Hope and other things. And now the Peace Studio and other organizations and things. It's that people come together and they really become a family. It isn't an organization. And I was wondering, how does that come about? That feeling of it not being work or not being just another project. What is it about it?
Well, all of the things that I'm doing are very heartfelt now. I'm not making a dime. And I have my oldest daughter sometimes says, you should charge, as a consultant, all these things that you're doing. And I'm like, that would be so different from the experience of you're doing it because you love doing it and you can't wait you see this person needs to talk to that person and magic will happen. It's like more than 1 + 1. It's like 100. And so at this point in my life, I mean, I really bound out of bed in the morning with the idea of connecting people, just seeing that collaboration to me is so important. I see people in their silos and they're really aligned. They're trying to do the same thing. They have the same mission, but they're not, coordinated. They're not collaborating. And I feel like the old paradigm was competition. And I was in a very competitive environment as an investigative reporter. Yeah, don't get in my way. And then in terms of when I ran the Center for Public Integrity, that was like, give the funding to me, don't give it to anybody else. And I'm now seeing, I'm in a really different place in my heart and my head about seeing the opportunity that exists for organizations, people to work together. It's the only thing that is going to work to make this planet a more loving and just place.
That's beautifully said. That really is. Do you think that people are coming to that, realizing that is the only way, is to collaborate, to work together, to respect each other? It's no longer the one person leading everybody and telling everybody what to do, and you have to do it their way or the highway kind of thing. Especially, I would think, I've only worked in public television, and I don't know, but corporate, if you're working for corporate television, I'm sure it's really can be very rough. And you did have some difficult moments over the years, right? I mean, it wasn't necessarily easy.
Definitely went through some very challenging times. And actually with the kinds of stories that I did, which were often about very big companies and corporate misconduct kinds of things, I was very heavily lawyered also. It's been days with a lawyer sometimes. And for me, I really liked the challenge of all of that. I felt like, they need to ask me tough questions and I need to be able to answer them. And, I want to be fair, truthful, and accurate. Anyway, I loved all of that work that I did in the past. And I felt like on a good day, you could change the world, maybe not enough good days. But I feel like now, there's a lot of darkness in the world. There's a lot of terrible things happening. I do lie awake at night worrying about climate justice. And, we do know what the solutions are, but can we solve them with the urgency of this decade, basically, and we know what to do. But I know that there's more good people than bad people out there. I mean, you hear more about the ugliness in the world somehow. That's what we're bombarded with in terms of media messaging. But there's so much, even like something like the Ukrainian war, the war in Ukraine, look at the people like Jose Andre feeding hundreds of thousands of people and people taking refugees into their homes. There's all, in the darkness of so much, we could go on and on. There's also beauty and good people who step up and are helping to make the world a better place.
So we should we're going to have the news, we have to have news. We have to know what's going on in the world, right? But is it that there should be a bit more or even a lot more focus somehow on, because people get very depressed, when they, and there's a lot of research now that shows that the more you watch of the news, in terms of the minutes of the news that you see, the more pessimistic you get about the world.
Yeah.
So there are those moments of seeing some hero, like you say, somebody that goes out and does something good, but not really enough. It's almost like a blip, right? If you luck out, maybe you see that in a news, not just the newscast, but in everything,
Yeah, well, the social media environment and all. I definitely feel like I need a news diet. I need to be mindful of what's happening in the world, but I also need to be more discriminating about not going down the rabbit hole of, every awful thing that is happening out there. And then I also worry about places where there are now news deserts in America because of what's happened to local news, which is so important in terms of helping people make good decisions about democracy. And you have places where, people are not getting local news. And, And so, you know, we're living in a very challenging time. But in this challenging time, there's also a lot of opportunity in terms of new ways of being. And so, you know, I'm definitely a stubborn optimist about all of it.
Oh, can I say one thing about you that you wrote yourself, that about your quality? And I love it. I love it. So I'm not giving away any secrets, I don't think, but you wrote something about what the quality that you have that you feel has made you so successful, you know, for so many years. And it was tenacious, right? You don't give up, do you?
Tenacity. Yes.
Tenacity, exactly.
Yes. I always felt actually that when people wouldn't give me the documents or didn't want to do the interview or whatever, I always felt like, this is really getting good. This is like, I get inspired by challenges, really, in a funny way. And I don't know really where that came from, but it's, you know, it goes back to my being a little girl, really. I mean, just like, yeah.
Oh, tell the story about you with your mother and buying something for her, and the man wouldn't give you the furniture. There was something you were doing.
My mother, I grew up in Chelsea and Greenwich Village in New York City. And my mother, as everybody else in New York, complains about not having enough closet space. So I was going to junior high. I was like 12 or 13 years old. And I would walk by this antique store, and they had this armoire out on the street, and it was totally dilapidated. It was $50, and all I had was $50. That is how much I had saved by charging $1. That's how, we're talking a long time ago, $1 for babysitting. So I accumulated $50, and it said that it was $50, $175 if it was fixed up. And I went in and I said, you know, I only have $50, but I want to buy this for my mother for a birthday present. It'll be fabulous, but it has to be fixed up. And can you sell it to me for $50? And they're like, no, kid, you know, thanks. But, you know, we're going to sell it. You can buy it for $50 the way it is, as is, or $175. And I was like, I don't have $175. So I went in every day after school, and I said, well, it's getting closer to my mother's birthday, and this is like the best present that I could give her, but I only have $50. Finally, they said, okay. And they fixed it up. And it was so beautiful. We still have it in the family. It was oak, it was gleaming, and the brass was gleaming, and the drawers were all, you know, fitted properly now. And it was just wonderful. And they said, so how are you going to pick it up? How are you going to deliver it? And I said, well, I need you to deliver it. And they said, we don't deliver. I said, I'm a kid, I don't drive. I need you to deliver it. And so they said, okay. And I said, and could you put a big red ribbon around it and sing happy birthday to my mother when you deliver it? And they're like, okay, kid. I didn't tell them that it was a 3-flight walk up. And so anyway, they put a big red ribbon around it. They huffed and puffed and brought it up the stairs to my mother and sang happy birthday to her. My mother cried, and they said, that kid of yours, she never gives up. And my mother said, I know. That was sort of like may have been the moment of just sort of like, yeah, you just have to keep trying. You have to, like, if you have a dream, you got to go after it.
And that has been you for all of these years, whether it, I'm sure, happened when you were working on the Nike sweatshops, right? That's when you uncovered that Nike was actually, they weren't running sweatshops, they were allowing sweatshops to exist.
Yes, they were subcontracting in Indonesia and in Vietnam, and they were paying less than $40 a month for a 6-day work week to these women, which was less than the minimum wage in Vietnam. And there were incidences of physical abuse. And so I exposed that story. And to me, it was both the exploitation of them, because they're not even making the minimum wage as set in Vietnam, and being physically abused, but it was also an exploitation of us. We were paying $135 for those sneakers. And so a lot changed in the aftermath of that. I mean, that was the good news. I mean, actually what happened was young people all over the country started picketing Nike towns and arranging boycotts that really, made a big difference. And
I love that you just said a young
inside, they
people.
changed their values really in
changed.
terms of how they thought about the supply chain.
Do you think that's the way it is today? I mean, I do feel, and I think we see it all the time now, that it is the young people that will not settle for things that are wrong or bad. Years ago, people would be like, oh, well, what are you going to do about it? That's business. I'm not saying everybody said that, but people were a lot more blasé in a sense, like just let business do its thing, let politics do its thing. But now young people won't settle. They won't settle.
Everything that I'm doing really is very focused on young people because they are the future. And so I see them as inheriting the mess that we've made of the planet. And they, are picketing and organizing and getting involved in public policy and hopefully voting their values, because we really do, we have these solutions that just need to be affected, and it affects all of us, but it especially affects the young people and their future. And I feel that way about democracy. I want them to not just register and vote, but to run for office so that they can exercise their power, and be civic leaders.
Yeah, well, like we do see it happening. I mean, I'm not saying maybe politically, I'm not sure right this second, but things are changing. No, and yet we see the power of the younger people that are really, really, like you say, they're going out there.
I mean, they turned out in historic proportions for the presidential election.
True.
And I think that they might do it again, with the midterms. And so I'm very excited about what young people are doing. And then Aim to Flourish, Meredith. That is young.
That's another one of she only has like, what, 7 nonprofits that you're on the board of, and you're an active board.
No, I'm not even on the board. That's just something I started
you're involved.
In Cleveland at Case Western Reserve University. And I'm so proud of it. It operates mostly on love. And Megan, who's the executive director of this center in the business school, is running it beautifully, elegantly. And we have now more than 4,000 stories that have been written by business school students all over the world in more than 100 countries about companies that are helping to achieve a sustainable development goal. It's amazing. I mean, it's just because these are the next leaders also in companies in terms of what they choose to do as heads of companies or the companies that they choose to start. They've learned about the sustainable development goals, which we're trying to achieve by 2030. So it's, again, it's in this decade. And I'm 4,000 stories written by them. And we give out 17 Flourish prizes every year for the 17 best.
I mean, that has to be extremely fulfilling, because sometimes one can work on, in an organization and see change, but what you're doing is you're seeing these young people really actually affect change by something that you've spent your whole career doing, shining a light on something in the world, right? As you say,
shining a light on what works.
Good, what's good
doesn't
and what
work.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Really exciting. And I love the stories, anecdotally, we hear that some of them they do these interviews. They have to do the research. They have to find a company or an entrepreneur doing something amazing in terms of helping to achieve one of the global goals, end hunger, or, climate change, of course, is a big one, or life on land, or, how they're beautiful goals, and they reflect on them and they find somebody helping to achieve one or more of them. And then they write up these stories that I love reading them. I mean, they're just really interesting companies, small and medium-sized companies that you wouldn't otherwise know about.
So something is happening in the world, isn't it? I mean, there is a growing consciousness that we can create change, that we can create not just positive change, but I mean, it is positive change, but change that will really create something different, like almost like a new society eventually. Is that, I mean, do you see that? Yeah.
Society. what
of
the UN
seeing the
said
world.
when they did the Sustainable Development Goals, when they 191 countries or whatever it is voted
Yeah.
on them unanimously. The first time the whole world came together for anything unanimous, they said, leave no one behind. I mean, that's really the overarching goal, leave no one behind. And that is the thing that I worry about. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, but the disparity between rich and poor, you know, that you have
Absolutely.
people who have billions of dollars, and then you have children who are hungry or dying of diseases that are preventable. And so the chasm between rich and poor is not right. And that
It's,
is an
yeah.
injustice that needs to be healed.
Yeah. I mean, didn't Gandhi say there should be enough for everybody's need? That, you know,
There is enough.
so much greed or something. I don't, yeah, how he said it was,
And that's the
it's
point.
greed, isn't
There
it?
is enough. It's
There
just,
really is enough for everybody to at least have a decent lifestyle, right? I mean, there really is out there. I mean, does this concern you though, seeing the extremes today? I mean, the poverty and the illnesses, and I mean, just the way people live and all over the world that, you know, it doesn't, in that sense, it doesn't seem, you know, if you look at just, I don't know, statistics or whatever, it doesn't look like things are getting better in terms of that. Even in our country now, look, I mean, there's a big separation too between more than ever. I guess though, I mean, the thing is you have to start somewhere, don't you? So my feeling is, you know, the message, and I'm not sure if this is the message to you, is just that everybody should somehow look at their lives and look at what it is that they can do to create a better world. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think it's more optimistic than we hear about.
Yeah.
I mean, we are bombarded with all the troubles that we have in this country, and it is, you know, I feel that these things sort of go in cycles also, and the chasm that there is in values right now, I think will lead to change because it's not sustainable. And so it has to lead to change. And if you look around the world, I mean, there are fewer people that, you know, people are living longer, and children are making it past that critical age of 5, you know, without getting diseases that have killed so many in the past. I mean, we have some crazy challenges, including a pandemic for the first time. But I do have the stubborn optimism that it is also bringing people together around these challenges. And I'm confident that there are more good people than bad people. So the world does need to get its act together, and it needs to happen fast.
Quickly.
Yeah, it does. Otherwise, I think Mother Earth will shake us off like fleas. I mean, there's a certain arrogance to humans that, you know, dominion over the planet. But this is the only planet that we have, and we have not been kind to her in terms of, you know, we've been reckless and greedy in terms of using up resources. But there is enough for everyone if we will just be mindful. And so I really think people you need to be serious about your shopping in terms of shopping your values, your voting in terms of your values, who you spend time with in terms of your values. So eating, that's also, you know, I mean, what we eat, what we consume is huge in terms of the climate crisis. So, you know, eating less meat or eating no meat, all of that, you know, contributes. Thinking about transportation costs, plastic. So, and I see young people thinking like that more. I mean, they get it, I think.
It
They're not happy with us old folks.
amazes me when I know they're looking at us and going like, you know, what
What have
happened
we
to us?
done?
It was like a certain time where there was just so much. I don't think the parents lived like that. You know, I think there was a certain time, which was kind of maybe after the 60s or the 60s. I don't know when it happened, but so much consumerism. So
Yeah.
I think what, you know, what we're talking about really is, it all begins with you, you know, with me and you, and it all begins with taking a look at our lives. And I know for myself, a lot of things changed when I did start to get more spiritually involved, do meditation and be around people that really have given up a lot, even though they don't think they've given up a lot, people that just are, when I first encountered total vegetarianism, or now it's, a lot of people are becoming vegans, and like you say, taking a look at how much you have in your life. Do you need all of that? And just a different way of looking at life. So my feeling too is that I'm seeing more young people that really are on that path.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here in Miami, many people say, their kids don't have cars anymore. They Uber. I mean, when they need a car, they ride their bikes. I mean, that didn't happen in my time. I mean, I love my bike, but, I wasn't going to, people live closer to their work, or they don't even have to go to work. So there's a lot to be optimistic about.
Cool changes, yes, that are happening. And I see them every day, and I'm trying to focus on that. Instead of what's wrong. I mean, I can't help that, it's there. To go back to the news cycle, I do feel like we should be mindful of what we put in our heads from the news. And I definitely go down the rabbit hole sometimes where, I sink into despair, and then I pull myself out that, that there's beauty all around me. I'm living in the country now, which I really love, and looking at a lake, and I see little animals. And so, life is sweet. And I feel like, different decades are very different too. I mean, when we met 20 years ago, remember talking about meditation to journalists was kind of like, what? And now it's just so ordinary. Companies have, places for people to meditate. And
it was weird in those days. I mean, people would say to me, they would come to some of our programs for Images and Voices of Hope, which is now kind of merged with the Peace Studio that we're both involved with. People would come to some of our programs, right, in upstate New York. And especially some of the very, very well-known journalists I found were the ones that would look around and go, what is this? I thought I was coming to a media event, and what is this? What's going on here? All this meditation. But today, what I notice is the younger people come in and, they're already doing it. That's part of their life already.
Yes. Yeah, it's just, the rhythm of their lives. I mean, meditation is just like, call it reflection, or, praying, or whatever you want to call it. But people understand that it affects your mental health in beautiful ways.
Yeah. And bringing a sense of peace into your life, and I think I really do feel that when we're peaceful, if we can create that within us, then we're able to spread it and affect others so that they can go and affect
it's
others.
Energy. It's all energy. And if you're in an elevator with somebody who's anxious, you can feel it. And if you're, standing next to somebody who radiates peace and love, you feel that. It's palpable.
Roberta, you're definitely one of those people, those very special people. You do emanate peace and well-being. And what I've always seen with you is the desire to help others, to give to others. I don't know if that's something you developed or you were just born with that, because it's just such a special quality that you have that's very natural. It can't be an affected thing with people. It has to be something that comes from the heart. And you do live like that, from the heart.
Well, that reminds me of my favorite Rumi quote, or one of my favorite Rumi quotes, which is, the beauty you see in me is a reflection of you. You are only looking in the mirror, Meredith, because you're describing yourself.
You're a sweetheart. You really are. I wish I would have shown them how strong and tough you were in those days, but you did it in such a beautiful way. When you did have to go after all of these organizations, these businesses, the dental,
that was the worst. Yeah.
I wanted to show some of it, but
you don't want to show some of it.
I feel that was the past, and yes, it needs to be shown, but showing where there were dentists in the country, right, then you uncover that
unnecessary baby root canals on children for the Medicaid money.
For the
and they were having contests among the clinics for who could do the most baby root canals for bonuses and trophies. it was evil. And they were thrown out of Medicaid and also paid a $23 million settlement.
Wow.
So
that you did good, what can I say? You did something really, even though, we look at that and we go, oh, that was hard. It needed to be shown. And so I think that at some level there is a place too in this world where things that are wrong and bad, people need to know about them.
They do need to be exposed.
Yeah.
And that probably is the most evil thing that I ever saw.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's hard to look at, which is why you don't want to show it. It's
well, I would have probably, except, our Facebook site with the Brahma Kumaris is really, more about really shining a light as you do on things that are positive and empowering. But again, I do feel very strongly that if something's happening out there in the world, if we don't know about it, how can we change it, right? So we do need the media and people. That's one more thing I would like to say is that people's distrust of the media is not a good thing, because what I have found is most people that become journalists, they go into it because they want to do good in the world, right? I mean,
absolutely.
They're not out to do things that are bad. They really aren't,
Yeah, no, it is a,
yeah,
my role was speaking truth to power, really. But I think, all the journalists that I know care deeply about the work that they do and really are self-sacrificing, care. It is a calling, and it makes me so sad that we now have this idea that, fake media and, alternative facts, that kind of thing. Facts are facts, and journalists really take their jobs very seriously and sacrifice a lot to do those jobs. I have the deepest respect for journalism.
I feel the same way. And Roberta, I'm just wondering if you could maybe just give some, I don't know, some suggestion to people as to how to, when people tell me sometimes this is the truth, and then they tell me where they saw it or read it.
Yeah, pay attention to your sources. It's really important to be mindful of a New York Times, a Washington Post, a Miami Herald. These are institutions that have values. It's like my work I just didn't throw stuff on the air. I would go through heavy lawyering. And I had to answer those questions. And I had to have many sources. And it's, if you're getting it from, just the internet, that is not necessarily a good source. It might be, depending on, who it goes back to.
Well, there are people that tell me that they get there, they don't read the news anymore, or don't hear the news, they get it from Facebook. So what does that mean? They're getting news that somebody has, put out and shared. That
I know. I hear from friends who, send me something and it's just like, not true. And I guess we just have to be tender with people about it, not lecture them, but just, I've done this with people who are close to me, just like pay attention to the source. Where does it come from? Is it a reliable source? And so you have to do your own fact checking sometimes.
Yeah. And I guess it all comes down to, we have to be more aware of how we act, what the impact is going to have on others, on society. And it's almost like a never ending, that's how I feel about myself. It's like a never ending process, today, maybe today I've done something nice or helped somebody, but then what about tomorrow? Did I hurt somebody's feelings? Did I, whatever. It's really
what you don't know is how many times, and this goes for everybody watching, this is so true, that we all affect people in ways that you don't always hear about either. And it can, in really positive ways, you can change somebody's life and make it better. And you may not even know that you did it. Often you don't know. That's one of the things I love about StoryCorps, where you have people in conversation, where you have, somebody talking to their former teacher about how that teacher was a mentor and changed the trajectory of their lives. And so it's really such a delight, and we all should be responsible for telling people, appreciating, the goodness in others and what we get from that. but understanding that you often just don't know, but you are,
Yeah.
and especially with young people. I mean, I'm really, thinking about that a lot in terms of how can we help them step up to their leadership and their impact on the world in a positive way, not being prescriptive, but like just helping them with whatever resources we have, a kindness or whatever.
Encouragement, support.
Exactly, yeah,
I mean, emotional.
to be their best selves.
Exactly. Well, I think you're doing it in all the many projects that you are actively involved with, not just involved, but actively involved. And you put all of your energy, all of your passion and your love into everything that you do.
Well, they're all
Roberta.
heartfelt. I'm really enjoying all of them.
I'm really enjoying getting to talk with you, and I thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
Meredith.
taking the time.
It's just so fun always just
It's
to
always
be
a
in the
pleasure
Zoom
to
with
get to
you.
be with you. I hope you'll come visit Miami soon so we can be together again.
Me
soon
too,
on
but
some
I'll see
project and
you
walk
in
on the
June.
beach. Right.
I'll see you
Yeah.
in Peace Village in June.
See you soon. Take
Okay.
care.
Much love.
And I did want to thank Mita. Mita is our technical director on the program. And among many, many other things that Mita does at the Brahma Kumaris Center in Miami, out of Miami, so many things come. And she, to me, is an example of tirelessness. Mita does a bit of everything, and she does it so well. So thank you, Mita.
Thank you,
And
Mita.
yay, Mita, and yay, Roberta, for all that you do for the world.
Yay, Meredith, and to all of your viewers. Too.
Yeah. Thank you so
Everybody,
much.
have a good day. Pass it on.
Bye, Roberta.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm Roberta Baskin, and I'm working in communications at the Fowler Center for Business as an Agent of World Benefit. This is a radical change for me. For more than 30 years, my focus was corporate misconduct, basically working as an investigative reporter at the networks and in local news. And I had a real amount of passion for it. I loved to shine a bright light on a company that was doing a bad thing. But I think that, a lot of people who watch the news, read the news, feel a sense of despair. They are bombarded with things that don't work. And I think that there's a real hunger now more than ever for, well, what does work? Where are the opportunities? Who are the companies that we should be investing in, or where we should, as consumers, be spending our money? And so I am thinking about, I lie awake at night and think about how can I find those companies that are doing radical innovation, that are inspiring their employees, that are doing amazing things for the environment, human rights, whatever. And I want to find those companies and shine a bright light on those, because I think people want hope. And I have faith. Being at ICCR today, where we're going to be meeting and talking with investors, shareholders, NGOs, people who care about the environment and are concerned about climate change and want to make a difference, that gives me hope.